Let's begin. The first time Nolan Cadell realized he was being erased from his own life, it didn't come as a blow. It came as a whisper, soft, deliberate, planned. He stood at the corner of his private design studio, sunlight leaking through floor-to-ceiling glass panels that framed the Los Angeles skyline like a living painting. The room was pristine, too pristine for what was about to happen. Stacks of technical drawings, holographic display models, prototype schematics. It was all his. Every single design bore the fingerprints of his sleepless nights, his engineering mind, his patient obsession with precision. And then there was her, Geneva. She leaned against the marble credenza like it was a throne. Her tone was careless, her posture entitled. She wore a silver silk blouse he hadn't seen before, diamond earrings catching the light like secrets waiting to be exposed. Geneva Cadell, 36, glowing, immaculate, and utterly detached, looked at Nolan like he was a mistake she was fixing. "You're too still," she said, twirling the stem of champagne glass. "That face. Like you're thinking you can fix this. But it's done, Nolan. It's over." He didn't blink, didn't twitch, because Nolan had already known. He just didn't know she'd betray him with his brother. "You don't get to look surprised," she added. "You made it easy. You're always building something, bridges, towers, systems. You never once stopped to build us." "And Theo?" Nolan asked finally, his voice calm like a locked vault. "Was he building you while I was gone?" The corner of her mouth lifted. "At least he sees me. You stare through me, like I'm a structure to solve." Nolan stayed seated behind the massive tempered glass desk, fingers laced. Behind him, a hidden security panel blinked softly. She had no idea he had eyes on everything. "Why now?" he asked. "Because Theo is ready to take your place," she said, stepping forward with a spark of cruelty in her voice. "And so am I. You don't have to play the martyr anymore. You don't have to lose everything. You've already lost me." He stood now, slowly, deliberately, a man carved from stone and silence. "You think this is the beginning," Nolan said, voice low and steady. "But it's the ending. For you, for Theo, for everyone who thought I was asleep behind the wheel." She scoffed. "There's nothing you can do." He smiled. "Just a little. You'll see." As Geneva turned to leave, her heels echoing on the polished wood floors like the ticking of a detonator, Nolan opened the drawer beneath his desk and pulled out a black hard drive. Encrypted, archived, time-stamped. It contained every digital footprint. Theo's hacks into the corporate servers, Geneva's offshore wire transfers to a shell corporation she thought he couldn't trace, and even the fake contracts they forged to siphon off Nolan's intellectual property. Silence wasn't his surrender. It was his strategy. That night, he sat under dim lights, scanning surveillance footage. One frame showed Geneva slipping into Theo's apartment building at 2:14 a.m. Another showed them copying files in his office using a cloned fingerprint chip. They thought they were playing chess. They didn't know Nolan was designing the whole board. He opened a new message, typed in the address of a federal white-collar crime investigator, attached a folder labeled Project Drift, then hit send. Morning sunlight didn't warm Nolan. It exposed him. The next day, he stood in front of the towering glass facade of Cadell Dynamics, the company he built. Not Theo, not Geneva, him. Yet when he walked through the executive floor, no one greeted him. Heads ducked. Whispers crackled in the silence like static in a broken wire. He was already being written off. In the sleek boardroom, Theo sat at the head of the table like a prince crowned in secrets. His jawline was sharper than Nolan's, his smile a little too rehearsed. Geneva sat beside him, not as a wife, but as an accessory, the kind that costs a man his legacy. Their parents were there too, Arthur and Madeline Cadell. Wealthy, old money, unyielding. Arthur looked up at Nolan with tired disappointment. "You should have stayed home today," Arthur muttered. "You should have stayed loyal," Nolan shot back. "Let's not turn this into a circus," Theo said with a grin. "We're finalizing the acquisition proposal. Geneva's filing for divorce. You're being bought out, gracefully." Geneva's eyes glinted like broken promises. "You'll walk away wealthy. Isn't that what you always wanted? Peace, without the stress of running the company." "I never wanted peace," Nolan said, stepping closer. "I wanted truth. Before anyone could respond, two men in dark suits entered. One flashed a badge. Agent Rivas. FBI. We have questions from Mr. Theo Cadell regarding intellectual property theft, offshore laundering, and cyber intrusion. Theo's chair skidded back. This is ridiculous. I want a lawyer. You'll need one, Nolan said, his voice ironclad. Geneva's lips parted in disbelief as Theo was cuffed. This is a setup. Nolan, you bastard. You did this. He didn't deny it. Just looked at his father. Still think I should have stayed home? The boardroom erupted into chaos. Geneva slipped out, rattled. Madeline clutched Arthur's wrist, whispering panicked questions about their family name, their reputation. But Nolan walked out calm, unaffected, like a man already 10 moves ahead. Later that evening, as he poured a single shot of scotch in his loft, the doorbell buzzed. It was Delia Rowe, his lead counsel, his longtime friend, his almost confidant. Her eyes were swollen. Her hands trembled. I need to talk, she said. He didn't invite her in. He just waited. Geneva approached me weeks ago, she whispered. She said you were unstable. Said she needed legal help reassigning control. I didn't know she was working with Theo. Not at first. She forged documents in your name, Nolan. I helped. I helped. You were with me for 10 years, he said coldly. You defended my patents. You helped draft my father's trust. And yet, you help him erase me? I thought you were cracking, she said desperately. They showed me fake psych evaluations. They said you were having episodes. I believed them, until I didn't. And now you're here for what? Nolan asked. Forgiveness. Delia fell to her knees. I'm here because I'm afraid. Theo threatened to expose bar complaints I'd sealed. Geneva said she'd ruin me if I told you the truth. I was scared. Nolan exhaled. Slow. Controlled. You should be. Then he called building security. Told them to escort Ms. Rowe out. Permanently. As she was led away, Delia sobbed. You were the only person who ever trusted me. I was your friend. You were, Nolan said. But loyalty is measured in silence, not in presence. She left without another word. Nolan returned to his desk, opened a folder labeled Backfall Protocol. It contained contracts, bank logs, witness affidavits, everything prepared in advance. He had anticipated betrayal. He'd been engineering it since the day he found Geneva's secret account registered under a childhood nickname he once used in college. He wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was rebuilding without mercy. The news broke like thunder. Within 48 hours, every business outlet from Bloomberg to local radio was headlining. Theo Cadell arrested in multi-million-dollar corporate heist. But that wasn't what stunned people. It was the name Nolan Cadell appearing right beneath it. No longer the quiet co-founder or the silent engineer in the background. Now he was the headline. The man who orchestrated a reverse takeover by playing the long game. His phone never stopped ringing. Sponsors, investors, board members, even the media. Everyone wanted a quote, a comment, a reaction. He gave none. Instead, Nolan walked straight into the main conference hall of the company he'd once been pushed out of. Every executive was seated, pale, stiff, nervous. Geneva sat at the back, dressed in black this time. Maybe trying to look mournful, maybe just hiding the storm behind her eyes. But Nolan? He looked like thunder in a tailored suit. He dropped a stack of files on the table. These, he said coolly, are internal audits from the last 18 months. All verified, all showing where Theo funneled money to ghost suppliers. Fake R&D, consultant fees that went to a nightclub in Budapest. My name was forged in every document. But the signatures? Digital trails? Fingerprints? His. Silence. Geneva stood. This is a smear campaign. You're bitter. You're humiliated. No, he interrupted. You're cornered. She tried to speak again, but he raised a hand. Also included, wire transfers to your joint account with Theo. Flights you claimed were for charity appearances? I've got footage of you both in Paris, 5-star hotel, billing everything under Cadell charities. You forged every itinerary. Geneva's expression cracked. Board members looked at each other, uneasily. Do you think I was stupid? Nolan asked, eyes piercing her. I'll let you feel safe. I'll let you mock me. So when you slipped, when you got comfortable, I had you. Her face twisted. You're trying to destroy me. No, he said. I already did. As she stepped back, a federal agent entered quietly. Mrs. Cadell, we need to speak to you about a few discrepancies regarding the company's charitable division. She froze. Nolan, don't do this. He didn't flinch. You did it to yourself. She was escorted out. No cuffs. Not yet. But close. And in the corner, Mason Tull, the head of R&D, was already checking his watch. Nolan noticed. Mason, he said coolly, stick around. You filed 3 patents under Theo's name. Ones I personally submitted to you for review. Care to explain why your name appears as secondary innovator? Mason swallowed hard. Nolan walked out. He didn't need to say more. His silence now screamed louder than any accusation. That night, Geneva sat alone on a park bench in the dark, designer coat clutched tight around her shoulders. Her phone buzzed. A message. From Nolan. Your assets are frozen. Your name's been stripped from all holdings. Don't call me again. She dropped the phone in her lap. No one had ever cut her out before. She had gambled everything on Theo, and Nolan had turned out to be the one holding every card. But she wasn't done. Not yet. The next morning, Nolan's security manager, a former intelligence officer named Rowan Dex, walked into his penthouse office. Boss, he said grimly, we got eyes on her. Geneva's making moves. Reached out to a tabloid. Offered them your psychiatric file. Nolan raised a brow. The fake one Theo manufactured? Rowan nodded. Yeah, we intercepted the handoff. We also have audio of her saying, if I can't win, I'll make him burn. Nolan turned to the window. Send it to the DA. Let them see intent to defame. They'll add it to her file. Already done. He paused. One more thing. Rowan hesitated. She's pregnant. Nolan didn't react. Then, is it mine? No, Rowan said quietly. It's Theo's. Confirmed. Nolan closed his eyes for just a second. Not from pain. From release. The last chain snapped. Thanks, Dex, he said. Double the firewall on my properties. And tell the firm. I want her name erased from the architectural record. Yes, sir. Because Nolan wasn't just reclaiming what was his. He was rebuilding everything. From the ground up. No ghosts. No shadows. No forgiveness. The trial was public. The headlines endless. But Nolan stayed silent. While the world devoured tabloids, screaming, CEO love, Triangle implodes empire. Nolan rebuilt it all. Quietly, precisely. He didn't bother issuing statements. He didn't sit down for interviews. The only thing he built now was control. Theo pled not guilty, of course. Geneva claimed coercion. And the firm's internal legal counsel, Delia Rowe, was subpoenaed after Nolan submitted a second set of damning emails. Her license was stripped, her name removed from all professional registries. But none of that mattered to Nolan. He wasn't after victory. He was after permanence. By month 6, Cattle Dynamics had a new name, Cadex Industries. The rebranding was symbolic, sleek, minimalist, and completely devoid of any mention of Theo or Geneva. The board approved Nolan's return as chief engineer unanimously. That same night, alone in his penthouse overlooking the lit-up skyline, Nolan reviewed schematics of a new project, a modular tower design that could survive triple-impact earthquakes. There was a knock. He checked the feed. His father. Arthur Cadell stood in a dark coat, hands clasped, face aged by the fall of his empire. Nolan opened the door without a word. Can I sit? Arthur asked. No. Arthur remained standing, eyes scanning the room like it was a museum of what could have been his. I came to say we were wrong, he said. About you. About Theo. We put our faith in charm over character. I know, Nolan said flatly. His father flinched at the tone. You were always so calm, Arthur said quietly. It made us think you didn't care. But you were building something, weren't you? Yes, Nolan replied. A life, a future, a fortress. And you handed the keys to someone who wanted to set it on fire. Arthur's shoulders sagged. I lost everything, Nolan. Geneva turned on us. Theo's going away for at least 8 years. The firm I founded is a shell. You built nothing, Nolan said. I did. You just bought the wood. Arthur's lip trembled. I know I don't deserve it, but help me. Please. Just something. A small piece. No, Nolan said, already closing the door. I don't rebuild what I didn't destroy. Arthur's voice cracked. I was your father. You were his first. And the door shut. Across town, Geneva was spiraling. She had been evicted from her high-rise. Her bank accounts remained frozen. Her designer friends no longer returned her calls. The only person who still contacted her was her attorney, warning her of escalating charges. But Geneva? She wasn't done yet. She hired a shadow PR firm, one that specialized in reputation re-engineering. She offered them dirt, stories, photos, leaks, and so came the headlines. Inside the mind of a tyrant, the real Nolan Cadell. She tried to spin it all, claimed he was emotionally manipulative, cold, claimed he fabricated the evidence against Theo, that she had suffered, that she was the real victim. But Nolan had been ready. He had every call, every message, and when his lawyers filed a $30 million defamation suit, with proof of premeditated malice, the story collapsed within days. The firm vanished. The site was taken down. And Geneva? Nowhere to be found. Until the police found her trying to flee the country on a fake passport, her unborn child in tow. A month later, Nolan visited the courthouse for a hearing. Not for revenge, for finality. Geneva sat across from him in a pale blazer, wrists trembling as she signed the final settlement. No spousal support. No alimony. No company shares. Custody waived. Nolan didn't look at her once. As she finished signing, she whispered, I still dream about you. He stared ahead. I don't dream anymore. She blinked, her lip trembling. I loved you once. You believe that, don't you? He stood. You love the idea of me. The same way you love Theo. But you underestimated what happens when the quiet one finally speaks. Then he turned and walked away. The sound of her crying followed him, soft and meaningless. 5 years later, the skyline of Los Angeles had changed, and Nolan Cadell had changed it. The once subtle engineer now stood as the face of the city's most revolutionary infrastructure firm. Bridges that danced in earthquakes, towers that self-adjusted to wind, hospitals that ran off-grid for a full month. Cadex Industries was no longer a brand. It was a legacy. And Nolan? He wasn't just a survivor. He was the standard. He stood beneath the arch of the newly unveiled Cadell Resilience Bridge, surrounded by dignitaries and press. Flashbulbs snapped as he accepted the award for Structural Visionary of the Decade. A decade that began with betrayal, that ended in total dominance. His acceptance speech was brief, stoic, emotionless. I don't build for applause. I build so things don't fall apart. The crowd roared, but Nolan had already turned, walking away before the applause peaked. That evening, in his penthouse, he sat alone. He did that a lot now. Silence had never bothered him. It was where he designed, where he reflected, where he planned. On his tablet, a new message flashed from Rowan Dex, still his head of security. Geneva resurfaced in Nevada, working low-level admin at a bankruptcy firm. Using her maiden name, claimed she's reformed. Sent another letter. Nolan opened the attachment. It was scanned, handwritten. I was young. I was reckless. I see that now. I thought I had power. But you were power in silence. You never screamed. You never begged. You just waited. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to be remembered for more than my betrayal. He read it twice, then archived it. Didn't delete it. Didn't respond. He had nothing left to say. Theo had served 4 years. Early release for good behavior. He was now giving TED Talks on the psychology of failure. His hair was thinner. His eyes hollow. He had become the very thing he used to mock. A cautionary tale. Arthur and Madeline, they lost their estate in foreclosure. Moved to a condo in Maine. Their names never appeared in Forbes again. Delia Rowe. She took a job managing invoices for a concrete supplier in Detroit. Occasionally, her name would appear in legal forums under anonymous regret posts. Don't sell loyalty for short-term safety. But Nolan? He only moved forward. One night, Rowan entered his office unannounced. Sir, he said, we have intel that someone's tried to hack our archives. Name. A pause. Theo. Looks like he's digging into your early research, the stuff before Geneva. Maybe try to replicate your process. Nolan barely reacted. He stood, walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. I used to think betrayal was the worst thing a man could face, he said. But it's not. It's regret. Rowan waited. Let him look, Nolan said. He'll find nothing. I erased it all. The real ideas, they're in me, not in a folder. Rowan nodded. Understood. Months later, Nolan visited a small town on the edge of Arizona. Quiet. Desert blown. Forgotten. There, he stepped into a rundown hardware shop. A thin woman stood behind the counter. Her hair was tied back, her eyes tired. It took her a moment to recognize him. Nolan, Geneva said, voice fragile. He didn't speak, just looked at her. Not with hatred, not with longing, with clarity. I'm not here to hurt you, he said, or mock you, or gloat. Then why? She asked, voice cracking. To see if the person who tried to destroy me still thinks she succeeded. Geneva blinked fast. Did I? No, Nolan said. You made me. And he turned to leave. As the doorbell chimed behind him, Geneva stood frozen, holding a receipt, a pen, and nothing else. Back in the city, Nolan walked through KDEX headquarters. Engineers nodded. Assistants greeted him. He passed them all with a quiet nod. He stepped into the heart of the building, a hall of etched glass slabs, each bearing the name of a structure KDEX had built. He added a new slab, the unbreakable design, and under it, dedicated to everything they said I'd never survive. He stood for a long moment, then walked away, not bitter, not cold, just finished.